Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Was Shadow Ninja and Harem with 6 Girls Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. 4-year-old Naruto ran through the crowded village of Konoha. Behind him 5 men dressed in black chased, quickly closing the gap as a small group of villagers stepped in front of Naruto. Naruto turned and ran down the closest alley he could find, but he came to a stop as the nin jumped in front of him. Before he could run, a foot connected with his abdomen, sending him into the wall. As Naruto dropped to his knees in pain, the nin attacked with the villagers not far behind. After a good 10 minutes the attack stopped. Standing in front of Naruto was 2 men, which Naruto immediately recognized as the twin brothers that protected him whenever the villagers attacked. You are a disgrace to our village. Turn yourselves into the Hokage and your punishment will be minor. One of the brothers called to them. The men turned and tried to run. Hiashi, you take care of the boy, I'll deal with them. Hisashi called, activating his bloodline limit, the Byakugan. Try to make it quick. Hiashi told his brother, activating his Byakugan. Hiashi doesn't become a cocky bastard in my story, sorry. After a quick scan of Naruto's vitals, Hiashi picked the boy up and shushing back to the Hyuga compound. Hiashi sat Naruto on a makeshift bed in the branch family building. Hiashi did another quick check over the boy, before deactivating his Kekkei Genkai. Finding nothing seriously wrong with Naruto, Hiashi left the boy to rest and went to find his brother along with the Sandaime Hokage. Hiashi and Hisashi sat in the Hokage tower drinking sake with the Hokage himself. I see. Sarutobi murmured. You two want him to stay in the Hyuga compound until he's strong enough to defend himself. I'm sure he can learn some sub-form of the Juken, gentle fist, if trained properly. Hiashi stated. Fine, but I'm not sure the council will just let this happen. Sarutobi stated, inhaling a bit of smoke from his pipe. There are many things the council won't let happen, but they still do. I'll deal with the council, as long as the villagers don't try anything he'll be fine. Hiashi replied. So from this moment on Naruto Uzumaki will be living with the Hyuga branch family. Hisashi stated as he and his brother stood. Take care. The Sandaime called. Naruto woke with a pale-eyed woman kneeling over him, her palm covered in green healing chakra. The woman smiled as when she saw him open his eyes. Hello. The woman spoke softly with an angelic voice. My name's Faith, what's yours? She asked when Naruto remained silent. Naruto knew this woman was just like the rest of the village, but it was still rude to ignore someone so beautiful. Naruto Uzumaki. He replied in a quick whisper. Naruto, that's a nice name. So Naruto, how do you feel? Faith asked, removing her hand from his chest. Naruto sat up. Quote. Faith was about to speak again when a little boy about 2 years older than Naruto entered. The boy had pale eyes just like Faith and a strange mark on his forehead. Hello Neji-kun, is something wrong? Faith asked. Otu-san wants to see him. Neji stated, staring at Naruto. Naruto stood in the Hyuga family training room. To say Naruto was scared and nervous would be an understatement. Naruto didn't trust many people other than the Hokage. Naruto, my name is Hisashi. As of today I'll be training you to become a ninja, and in a year you'll be joining the academy along with my niece Hinata. You'll be staying here with me until you're old enough to move out. Alright Naruto, rest up, tomorrow we start your training. Chapter 1. Lives changed. Time skip, 6 years later. Alright boys, one more round then you're done for today. Hisashi called to the 2 ninja wannabes. Hi. Naruto and Neji replied. Naruto, don't forget you, Hinata, and Hanabi are going to dinner later on with Faith. Hisashi reminded the blonde. Alright boys, when you're ready, begin. Neji charged and quickly struck. Naruto dodged, then followed up with a powerful palm thrust. Neji grabbed Naruto's wrist and forced the dangerous strike away, before using a strike of his own to send Naruto to his knees. Naruto spun out of the way as Neji tried to disable his arm with a Juken strike. Naruto kicked Neji in his stomach, sending the 9-year-old boy to his knees. Neji recovered from the breathtaking blow quickly and attacked Naruto's arms with 3 Juken each. Naruto's arms went numb briefly, and before Neji could attack again, Hisashi ended the match. That's enough for today, boys. Naruto, go get cleaned up, the girls will meet you in the living room. Hisashi called. Naruto ran out and into his room. After quickly finding a black and red outfit, he rushed into the bathroom and took a quick shower. He dressed in the black shirt and pants with red flames climbing up the legs and a red fox on the back of the shirt surrounded by flames. Naruto is almost 7, but Faith made him special clothes. Naruto looked at his unruly hair and tried to smooth it out. He smiled when it stayed down, but the second he moved it shot back up. Naruto scowled at his reflection, then left out. After making a quick stop in his room to grab his small black-bladed dagger, the Kitsune Jinchuriki ran into the living room where Faith and the girls were waiting. Ready to go, Naruto-kun? Faith asked. Hi. Naruto called out. All right then, let's go. Faith said, leading them out. So what would you like to eat? Ramen. Naruto called out. The girls laughed as the blonde ran ahead. Hinata tripped, and when she stood, the others were a good 10 feet away. That was all the distance the hiding nin needed, and he quickly swooped down on Hinata. Hinata let out a quick cry that alerted the others. Faith ran toward the nin, but before she could get close, a red blur shot past her. Let her go. The blonde boy commanded, red chakra leaking from his body. Hey little Gaki, go play before someone gets hurt. The nin said. By now Faith was thinking of a plan to get Hinata free, when she saw the nin's headband. You're from Kumo, you do know that you're breaking the treaty. Ha, that piece of paper will be worthless the second I get this Hyuga back to the village. The nin called, laughing. Faith rushed forward, and just before she could attack, a black blur flew past her and hit the nin's arm, causing him to release Hinata. The nin cried out in pain as and released a burst of chakra that sent Faith to her knees. Hanabi flew back into a wall and was rendered unconscious. Naruto's sudden burst of anger was quickly overpowered, and Kyuubi's chakra sank back into the seal. The nin knocked out Hinata and Faith before picking the up and taking off into the night with his catch. 3 Anbu showed up just as Naruto made his way to Hanabi's side. They scowled beneath their mask. By law of Konoha village, Naruto Uzumaki, you are hereby sentenced to death for attacking the Hyuga child. One of the Anbu stated. No, it wasn't me, I didn't attack. Naruto couldn't finish his sentence, because the Anbu kicked him into the wall. Naruto hit the ground and crumpled into a ball. The Anbu continued their assault before pulling out kunai and launching them into the blonde's back. Naruto cried out in pain as he watched the nin take Hanabi away. His vision slowly faded to black. Naruto woke in a dark, dank sewer. He stood slowly and made his way down the narrow hallway. He stopped in front of a cage where 2 looming eyes stared down at him. A deep rumbling growl came from inside the cage, and before Naruto could react, a large claw swooped out and pulled him past the bars, where a large fox stood baring his teeth. A strange feeling washed over Naruto as he was flooded with dark chakra. The fox glowed and assumed a human form. A man with long red hair and piercing red eyes. He wore a red shirt with the kanji for king on the back and the kanji for fox on the front. He wore black pants like Naruto's and had 2 bushy reddish-brown tails sticking out the back. Like Naruto, he had whisker marks on his cheeks, but they were more defined than the small blonde's. The man stared at the small blonde with his piercing red eyes, and a surge of energy flowed through Naruto. Naruto continued to stare into the piercing eyes. A vision of a fox made of fire engulfed him. Everything went black as he heard the man laugh. Naruto shot up in his bed with a cold sweat. He looked around. Where am I? Naruto thought, staring at the white walls of his room. He tried to stand, but pain shot through his body. He winced and forced his body to stand. The second he stood, his legs gave out and he fell to the ground. What's wrong with me? I've never felt pain like this before. Naruto thought. recalling all the times when he was attacked by the villagers. Not once had the pain lasted more than a few hours, so what was wrong? The pain is a reminder. A dark voice whispered as the door opened. The Sandaime Hokage and the Hyuga head walked in. When they saw Naruto collapsed on the floor, they rushed to his side and lifted him onto the bed. Naruto began to fight against them. He had to go save Hinata and Faith. It was his fault for being so weak, that was why he couldn't protect them. I've got to go save them. Naruto cried. We've sent hunters after them, Naruto. There's nothing you can do, so sit still and die, you damn fox. The Hokage growled, pulling out a kunai knife as Hiashi grabbed the blonde's neck and slammed him into a wall. Pain surged through his body. The wounds on his back weren't healed yet. Why? Naruto stuttered as the kunai was forced into his stomach. I knew it, even the old man is against me. Tears streamed down his face as his anger began building up. You can't seriously believe that I actually cared for you. You killed my friends and family. My wife never harmed you, so why did you kill her? You're nothing but trash to me. The Hokage said. Naruto snapped. All of the happy moments he and the others shared were burned from his mind. His anger surged and Kyuubi's chakra flared. The two men stepped back from the blonde for a moment, then smirked and pulled out kunai. They charged the blonde. Naruto dodged and attacked them both with a flurry of chakra-filled palm thrust. They crashed into a wall and Naruto took off out of the building. He was at the gates when a group of Anbu tried to capture him. 3 of them he recognized. They wore a tiger, eagle, and wolf mask. They were the ones that attacked him last night. His anger built once again and more of the demonic chakra forced itself into his tenketsu. The chakra changed him. His blonde hair reddened slightly, his fangs and nails sharpened. His sapphire eyes turned red and his whisker mark grew denser. The Anbu recoiled. Perhaps it was a bad idea for them to treat the blonde Jinchuriki like that. Oh well, too late for that now. Just as Naruto was about to attack, a swirl of leaves appeared in front of him. Standing in front of him was the Hokage and 3 nin Naruto recognized. Enko, the purple-haired snake charmer, Ibiki the interrogation specialist, and Maida Guy, the taijutsu master. Naruto looked at them with dark eyes. They flinched, Hokage included. Naruto focused his glare on the Hokage and growled. You, I trusted you, I thought you were my friend, I looked up to you as my grandfather. Naruto growled as tears flowed down his face. How could you? What do you mean? Naruto, tell me what happened. Sarutobi called, but the blonde Jinchuriki was beyond listening. Naruto just shook his head and charged past them with inhuman speed. Guy was about to follow when the Hokage held out his hand. Let him go. He's not of the ninja ranks, so I can't classify him as a missing nin, and if he stays here he'll die. The Hokage stated. The Hokage stared at the receding boy, a sad look on his face. Naruto's rage had long since burned out, but he wasn't going back. He would rescue both Hinata and Faith, then he would find somewhere he could live in peace, without being attacked on a daily basis. Night had fallen and Naruto was tiring. Not many 10-year-old kids could run 10 miles straight, but even with the kind of stamina Naruto had, 10 miles was far. He ran another half-mile and collapsed under the night stars. He lay there looking at the stars for a few minutes before drifting off to sleep. He woke in front of the cage. Those piercing eyes shifted to him the second he stood. Naruto stared into the piercing red and found himself being surrounded by darkness. He fell into the suffocating darkness. His heart raced and malicious laughter filled his ears. Those red eyes appeared in the darkness, like two bright lanterns. The darkness began to close in around him, trying to enter his body. Naruto began to fight against it. Don't fight the darkness, embrace it. The dark voice called. Who are you? The blonde Jinchuriki called back. I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune, ruler of darkness, king of the Biju. The menacing voice called from the darkness. More importantly, I am the source of your problems and I am your protector. A man stepped into the darkness and held his hand out to Naruto. Take my hand. I alone can free you from your suffering. Naruto slowly reached for Kyuubi's hand. Behind the man was a dark red flame. The second Naruto touched the demon lord's hand, the flames shot forward and engulfed him. Naruto braced himself for the pain, but surprisingly the fire was cool. Don't worry, nothing can hurt you in here, Kyuubi said as the darkness was burned away. Where is here? Naruto asked, watching Kyuubi's cage appear. The one place where you control everything, your one true safe place, your mind. Kyuubi stated. Kyuubi, can you tell me why you're inside my mind? There's no need, those flames gave you some of my knowledge. Just search your mind and you will find answers. Kyuubi smiled. Sorry fans, most of it will be in future flashbacks, right now I'm going to place a few images in. Raise out. Naruto called forth the memories and images flashed before his eyes. A giant bonfire, that turned out to be a village of fox demons. Kyuubi standing sadly over the bodies of his sister and his loved one. A war between the Biju with interference from a demigod and his army. Kyuubi charging the village of Konoha, searching for someone, half his fur pitch black. The Yodime stood in front of him on a giant toad. The visions ended in a flash and Naruto stood shocked. It was all a misunderstanding. Kyuubi explained. Alright brat, enough talking, your body has rested enough, we need to get as far away from that pitiful village before I begin training you. Training me? You didn't seriously think that a demon as great as me was going to allow my container to be weak? Kyuubi smiled. Naruto smiled weakly as his body began to fade. Thank you, he whispered. Naruto opened his eyes. Was it all a dream? Naruto thought, walking further into the forest. Naruto stopped in front of a small stream. Naruto knelt in front of the clear water and began to drink. When he was fully satisfied, he splashed water on his face and looked at his reflection. He jumped back, startled by what he saw. The person that stared at back looked like him, but it couldn't be him, could it? His ears pointed at the tips and reddish blonde fuzz covered the back. His eyes were different colors, one azure and normal like, the other a piercing red with a slit down the middle. Naruto closed his azure eye and his vision magnified times 10. He could see everything, the tiny bugs on the ground, the rocks at the bottom of the stream. Naruto opened his other eye and looked back into the stream. His whisker marks had darkened, his fangs had grown longer, and his face looked different, older. He had grown in height slightly, so he was now 5 feet 7 inches, his nails had sharpened into claws. So what now? The 10-year-old asked himself. Go to the next town and find some new clothes. That orange is hideous, Kyuubi stated. Well, sorry, it was the only thing I could afford thanks to a certain fox lord. Naruto snorted. Shut it brat, just go do it, Kyuubi stated. Naruto walked into the town. Kyuubi had removed some of his demonic chakra, making Naruto's ears return to normal. His other features wouldn't change back though. Naruto was aware that everyone was staring at him. He focused his eyes on a group of people and glared at them while sending a wave of killer intent at them. They glared back, then they ignored him. Naruto was just about to continue walking when he heard someone laughing. Naruto turned and saw an old man walking towards him, a large pack on his back. Yo, you've got guts brat. To send that much killer intent at a crowd that large in the village of Kulman. The old man called. What do you want, you old geezer? Naruto called. Hey, you look like your lost kid. The last kid that came through here was escorted by Kumo Nin. The old man said. Naruto tensed. Was there a woman with them? Yay, there was. She was about my height and had creamy white eyes with no iris. Why, you know her? The old man asked. I'm looking for her, for both of them. Naruto said, turning to walk away. Yo brat, catch. Take this to the bar in town and ask to speak with Nina, she might have some more info on where they head when they left here. The old man threw Naruto a black crest. Thanks. Naruto stated, walking away. Naruto stood in the clothing store, looking at the outfit one of the clerks had helped him find. It was a simple black pair of pants with a sleeveless black shirt that had a hood. Naruto pulled the hood over his head, as the clerk brought him a pair of black gauntlets. Naruto strapped them to his arms and grinned at his reflection. Now brat, go find some decent weapons, most of yours are pitiful. Kyuubi stated. Again, that was because of a certain fox lord. Naruto stated. Yay, yay, Kyuubi replied. Naruto stepped into the weapon shop. He had counted his money on the way in, he couldn't last long on less than a 10,000 ryuo. Naruto walked through the narrow aisles, looking for 3 specific items. 2 twin daggers and a cheap rapier. He found the 3 items and went to pay for them. The man at the counter was serving another costumer, a blonde-haired girl with greenish-black eyes. I'm not paying that much for these cheap pieces of junk, 300 ryu is all I'm paying. The girl called. Listen here you blonde-haired bitch, you pay what everyone else pays, $1,000. The store owner stated. You cheap bastard. The girl yelled. Naruto stepped up and placed the money on the counter. It's on me. Naruto smiled as the girl nodded, grabbed her items and walked outside where a tall woman with black hair was waiting. Thanks kid, that girl was starting to annoy me. The man stated. No problem, so how much for this batch? Naruto asked. The man looked at the items. 7 grand. Naruto whistled. The girl was right, you are a cheap bastard, but a price is a price. Naruto paid the man and left, as Kyuubi instructed. Naruto walked into the tavern that the old man was talking about. At the door, a man had hassled him, but when Naruto showed him the crest he stepped back and let him in. Naruto headed towards the counter where the bartender was attempting to hit on a woman with black hair. Naruto sat next to her, suddenly aware that someone was singing in the background. Yo old man, Naruto called, causing the woman to laugh and the man to glare at him. Look here brat, I'm not that old, just in my 20s. The man stated. Yeah whatever old man, Naruto replied. I'm looking for a woman named Nina. You'll have to wait till the song is over. The man stated. Want a drink while you wait? Yay, orange juice, no ice. Naruto called. The man laughed. Alright, 1 orange juice no ice coming up. Naruto sipped the orange juice as the singing came to an end. A tall woman with blonde hair walked up. Hey Joey give me a drink. The woman said. Yo Nina, the kid wants to talk to you. The man Joey called. Nina turned and looked at Naruto. Now what's a cute kid like you want with an old woman like me? You can't be older than this guy. Naruto jerked his thumb at Joey, who glared. You're right. Nina agreed. An old man in town told me that you might have some info on where a group of Kumo nin with a girl and woman might have gone. Naruto explained, failing to notice the black-haired woman tense, as he pulled out the black crest. Nina rubbed her head. Yeah, I believe they said they were heading to Ontrial town, about 3 days to the east, after that they were heading to Kumo. By now they should be heading to Kumo. Thanks. Naruto drained his glass and jumped off his stool, going to leave. Hey kid, the black-haired woman had followed him. Yay. Naruto stated as the woman fell in step beside him. Me and my niece are heading to Kumo, why don't we travel together? The woman asked. Kyuubi should I go? Naruto asked his tenant. Wouldn't hurt, just don't let them see me train you. The Fox Lord explained. Sure. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto grinned. I'm Kairi ni. The woman replied. I'll go get my niece and we'll meet you at the Culman Hotel. Alright, see you there. Naruto walked away. Naruto stood in front of the hotel waiting for his guest. His blue eye was closed and his vision was magnified once more. Alright brat, we'll begin your training tomorrow, but first I want you to let me take over for a few minutes. Kyuubi stated. How do I do that? Naruto asked. Just relax your mind and picture handing over a sword. Kyuubi explained. Naruto did as instructed and a warm liquid-like sensation flowed through him. Alright Naruto, can you hear me? Kyuubi asked. Loud and clear, this place is a dump, what do you do in here? Naruto asked. The same thing you did out here, be tortured by idiots. Kyuubi stated. Anyway, I'm going to have control for a couple of minutes, there's some things I need to do before I begin training you. Kyuubi said. Kyuubi grinned as he flexed his fingers, then he walked off towards a deserted pond, or at least what he thought was deserted. Kyuubi sat at the edge of the water and pulled out the 3 blades. He snapped the blade on the daggers and dropped them to the side. Inside his mind Naruto was fuming, he had paid a lot for those. Kyuubi ignored him as he began to flood his chakra into the hilt of the weapons. A 4-inch red blade began to form from the chakra. The blades curved slightly at the tips. He smirked as he heard Naruto gasp. How did you do that? Naruto asked. It's because of who your mother was, she was an Uzumaki. The Uzumaki clan were like the bond that tied the demons and gods together, so as a gift Kami gave them the ability to create metal from raw chakra. In the beginning, they needed to have some type of material to make it, but they quickly overcame that obstacle. Kyuubi explained. You know who my parents were? Naruto asked. Yes, they were both Kages, your mother was the Kamikage of Hibungakure, and your father was the Hokage of Konohagakure. Their names were Uzumaki Kushina and Minato Namikaze, also known as Kazama Arashi. Kyuubi told the blonde who cut the link as he began to cry an anger-filled cry. Kyuubi sighed as he went back to work. He grabbed the 2 discarded blades and forced his chakra into them, turning them red and making them long. He placed one against the gauntlet on his left arm and forced more chakra into it. The blade welded into the leather gauntlet, turning part of it metal. He grinned as he pushed a little chakra into it, causing the blade to shoot out about 4 inches from his hand. He did the same with the other blade, then pulled out the rapier. He forced chakra into the rapier, turning it red and making the blade stronger. He pulled some of the cloth on the hilt off and shot Yukai into it, turning it black, making it longer, before he wrapped it around the blade. He placed the blade on his back as he huffed slightly. Naruto's body couldn't take his burning chakra and his Yukai. He looked at his hands, they were healing slowly, but they had burns covering them. Kyuubi opened the link with Naruto again. Naruto, I'm switching back, get ready. Kyuubi called. Alright, Naruto said in a low voice. Kyuubi switched back. Look here brat, I didn't tell you who they were so you could mope around, I told you because I thought you should know. Now pull yourself together and go back to the hotel. Kyuubi growled. Alright, Naruto responded. Naruto stood and movement in the water caught his eye. Naruto turned and saw an angel dancing on the water. Her movements were graceful, they flowed into each other just like the water. The water lifted around her as she danced. It was then that Naruto realized that she was. A deep red blush covered his face as she dropped beneath the water. Yugito, come on, we have a guest waiting at the hotel. A voice called. Naruto left as the girl came out of the water and looked towards where he was. Naruto arrived moments before Kairi and her niece did. When Naruto got a good look at the blonde-haired girl beside Kairi, he blushed. It was the girl from the pond. Yugito, this is our guest, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto, this is my niece Yugito ni. Naruto will be traveling with us to Kumo. Kairi explained. Yugito stared at Naruto for a long time, checking him out. Naruto's eyes stayed on Yugito as she checked him out. In a sudden movement, she grabbed his hood and pulled it down. She looked at his face and stepped back when she saw his red eye and whisker marks. You're cute, was all Yugito said before turning away. Kairi laughed as Naruto blushed. Thanks, you're cute too. The words were out of his mouth before he could stop them. Well then, since you're both cute, you don't mind sharing a room. Kairi joked, walking into the hotel, leaving both of the blondes blushing. Naruto woke to Kyuubi roaring inside his head. He got up slowly and noticed the sun wasn't even up. What the hell, Kyuubi? Naruto yelled at the fox. It's time to start your training. Get dressed and go back to the pond from yesterday. Kyuubi responded. Naruto cursed the fox as he got dressed. The cool morning air blew away any fatigue he still had as he walked to the clearing. First things first, I'm going to start by training your muscles 4 days a week, chakra training 2 days a week, and training with my Yukai once a week. Kyuubi explained. Now I'm going to put 10-pound restriction weights on you, then I want you to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and run around this town 20 times, then you can go back to the hotel and get ready for your day. Naruto complained about the training, but when Kyuubi failed to reply back he sighed and began. As soon as he got down to start his push-ups, Kyuubi placed the weights on him. Naruto fell flat on the ground for a moment, but grumbling and cursing he got back up and started. Naruto walked into the Coleman Hotel covered in dirt and sweat. When he finally finished his training, the sun was up and he was glad he had worn his orange jumpsuit. It worked well as a training outfit, it was thick and restricted a lot of his movements, but that was why the villagers had given it to him, to slow him down and make him an easy target. Naruto walked into the room he and Yugito shared and began to undress for the shower. He had his towel in hand wearing only boxers when he walked into the bathroom. Yugito had just turned off the shower and stepped out when the door opened. She went to close it back when she slipped and collided with the blonde on the other side of the door. The two blondes fell back into the room, Yugito on top of Naruto. Naruto had tried to catch her and accidentally placed his hand on her. They froze like that, too shocked to register what position they were in. Suddenly the room door opened and Kairi walked in. My, I didn't expect you two to be this close after only one night. She joked. Yugito finally realized where Naruto's hand was and screamed. Pervert. Her hand met with Naruto's face, with a loud smack that echoed through the room. Hey, I said I was sorry, jeesh. Naruto said to Yugito as they followed Kairi out of the town. A dark red hand print was throbbing on Naruto's cheek. Yugito ignored him as she rushed to walk next to Kairi. The three continued in silence, until they stopped 4 hours later at a small town. We'll rest here for a while, get something to eat then meet up here in 2 hours. Kairi said walking off. Want to grab a bite, Naruto? Yugito asked. No, training time, Kyuubi answered in his mind. Sorry Yugito-chan, next time. Naruto called rushing off. Naruto walked back to the meeting spot 10 minutes late, he was covered in cuts, bruises, and sweat. Naruto, what have you? Kairi started. Naruto interrupted saying, training. Kairi shrugged as they walked out of the town. What kind of training do you do? Yugito asked. The normal kind, responded Naruto. Yugito huffed as Naruto grinned at her. Fine, don't tell me. See if I care. Kairi sighed. 2 weeks journey from her to Kumo, I don't know if I can handle these two bickering the whole way there. But she did. Yugito and Naruto bickered on and off the whole way, at least until Yugito found out Naruto's secret. Naruto sat in a clearing far away from their camp, concentrating on making flames from Kyuubi's Yukai. A small blue flame began to form in his palms. Naruto closed his eyes and concentrated on the burning Yukai, making the flame grow. He opened his eyes and stared at the baseball-sized flame. Without stopping the flow of Yukai, Naruto stood and began to toss the flame into the air. Now remember, if you don't have enough Yukai when you go to knock the flame back into the air it will burn you, and I can't properly her foxfire burns, so don't get burned. Kyuubi instructed. Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath as he felt the flame coming back to him. He charged his body with the Yukai and kicked the flame back into the air. The flame came back down, so he punched it and jumped into the air. He continued this exercise, not noticing the blonde-haired girl watching him. The point of the exercise was to allow him practice with Yukai, while his body gradually became resistant to the burning energy. Earlier he was told to practice tree climbing and the leaf balancing exercise using Kyuubi's chakra. Needless to say, the trees and leaves he used were dead before he finished. Now he was training with Yukai, much more destructive than demonic chakra. Naruto landed on the ground aware that the flame was right behind him. As he went to swing, Yugito and Hinata flashed into his mind. He faltered slightly and messed up his control. The flame hit his knuckles and burned Naruto's hand, but because the yukai was in his hand he caused the flame to fly away from him. Naruto hissed in pain as he opened his eyes. Naruto cursed when he saw the flames heading towards Yugito. Yugito was surprised by the flames which seemed to melt everything in its path, including the air. Before Naruto could move to stop them, black flames covered Yugito and dissipated the fox fire. What the hell? Naruto said as he rushed over to Yugito. Yugito looked at the blonde boy sheepishly. Well, looks like the cat's out of the bag. She laughed at her own joke. That was demonic yukai, how did you stop it? Naruto asked. Let's get back to the camp, we can talk there. Yugito said. Naruto, Kairi, and Yugito sat around a fire. So what was that all about? Naruto asked. Have you ever heard of the term Jinchuriki? Yugito asked. Jinchuriki is what people call demon containers, it means power of the human sacrifice. Most people believe the sacrifice is the person that dies when the demon is sealed into a child, but that's not the real sacrifice. The real sacrifice is the child the demon is sealed into, that child is hated as if they were the demon itself. I am one of these sacrifices, I am a Jinchuriki. The day I was born my father sealed the Nibi inside of me. Both my mother and father died because of it. Naruto sat still for a while, then without warning both him and Kyuubi burst out in laughter. Yugito and Kairi stared at him sadly, thinking he was laughing at her. Naruto looked at them as his laughter died down. Hey, sorry, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing at both of us. So they call us Jinchuriki, sounds sinister. Yugito looked at him strangely. What do you mean are you trying to say you're a? Suddenly Yugito started laughing. Kairi didn't understand. What are you two laughing about? Naruto held up his hand, showing the burn. This was made by yukai fire. Then that means, Kairi began as she looked at Naruto. Naruto spoke. That's right, I'm a Jinchuriki. Container of the Kyuubi. My father, the Yodaime sealed him into me 10 years ago. 10 years, that means he sealed him into you when you were 3. Kairi asked. 3? No, I was a newborn. I'm only 10, Naruto stated. But you look and act more mature than a 10-year-old. Yugito said. Anger flashed into Naruto's eyes briefly. That's because the bastards that raised me since I was 4 was a political figure in my village. The Hyuga head, right? Kairi asked, shocking Naruto. How'd you? Naruto began. I put 2 and 2 together. Back in the tavern you asked about Kumo Nin. I knew that the group you were talking about had been to Konoha recently and kidnapped the Hyuga heir. Add that to the fact that you seemed angry about it, I realized you must have known the girl. And the only way you could have known her was to have been raised around her, meaning it would have been the clan head that raised you. Kairi explained. I'm a ninja that specializes in information gathering. I was wondering what you wanted in Kumo, but now I guess you want your friends back. Inside Naruto's head Kyuubi had begun to laugh again. My, I knew this woman was special, perhaps she should take over your ninja training, she would know more techniques than I do. Speaking of techniques, where did you learn the ones you know? Naruto asked while asking Kairi to train him. I figured if I learned some human techniques, I could use them against them and find out how to stop them from using them against me. So I raided some vault and stole them. If you want some of them, find my cave. Sure, I'll train you, if you don't mind training with Yugito. Kairi responded. Alright, Naruto exclaimed loudly. That was 3 days ago. For some reason, Kairi upped Yugito's training when Naruto joined them. Now the 2 Jinchuriki walked tiredly behind Kairi as they entered the mountain gates. State your business. One of the guards called out. Kairi ni, returning with my niece Yugito and my cousin Naruto. Kairi stated. One of the guards stepped up and stared at the 2 blondes. So you brought the demon brat back. The guard said, failing to notice the flash of anger in Naruto's eyes. Yugito placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and gave it a squeeze. Whatever, go on ahead. The guard stated, ignoring them. Kairi led the 2 further into the mountains, towards the village of Kumogakure. You know, I'm really starting to hate that phrase. Naruto said as they neared the gates of Kumogakure. It's nothing we can do about it. Yugito called. People will be stupid. Naruto said nothing. He clenched his fist. Don't worry, most of the villagers are more reserved and I won't tell them about your problem. Kairi said as she led them inside the village gates. Naruto looked around. The village was similar to Konoha in size, but the village was virtually in the clouds. The village was balanced on pillars with bridges leading from one section to the other. A light fog covered the village and under the shopping center was a large platform that allowed people to stand and roam freely. The bridges were long enough to allow 4 people to walk side by side across them. Come on Naruto, don't fall behind, you might get lost. Kairi called as she and Yugito began crossing the bridge leading into the village. Naruto quickly fell in step behind them and watched the villagers to see what their reaction to Yugito were like. Most of them ignored her, but a couple of them shot glares at her, one even went as far as spitting at the ground in front of her. Naruto hit the man before anyone realized what was happening. The man flew back and crashed into the side of the bridge as Naruto gaped like he didn't understand what had happened. The villagers looked at them for a second, noticed Yugito and Kairi, then turned and went back to their business. Naruto, although that was very nice of you, I have to ask you to refrain from doing that again. The villagers already don't like her. If they think she's starting to fight back, they might get crazy. Kairi explained as they continued to walk forward. Listen Naruto, when we get in the Raikage's office, I want you to keep calm. No matter what happens, you have to remember he is the cage. Naruto wanted to question it, but Kairi walked off. Yugito cast a glance at him briefly, before she hurried after Kairi. Kairi led them to the Raikage's office, where a middle-aged blonde-haired man sat behind a large mound of paperwork. The man had a long scar slashing diagonally across his face, starting at his right eye. His right eye was closed, but his left was a gold color. He wore standard cage robes, in gold and blue. The kanji for lightning on his back. The man looked at Kairi and smiled. Ah, so the demon and her slave are back already and it seems you brought along another brat, bitch. The Raikage sneered. Raikage-sama, I'm returning from my training, your weapon has had sufficient training, I believe she should be allowed to join the academy at this time. Kairi stated dropping to one knee. You believe, I don't care what you believe. I'll assess her training in time. The Raikage stood and walked over to Kairi. He placed a hand on her cheek and began to stroke it, before he cocked back and slapped her. Kairi gritted her teeth and placed a hand on Naruto's foot as she saw him getting ready to attack. Naruto fumed silently as he got the message from Kairi. Naruto cleared his throat. Excuse me Raikage-sama, he spat. What do you want brat? The blonde man asked. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, I was born and raised in Konohagakure no Sato. I would like to join your ranks. Naruto stated. What would I want with a brat like you? The man questioned. 2 reasons, 1 my parents, they are dead now, but I carry their legacy and Kekkei Genkai. Naruto said. Who were your parents? The Raikage asked curiously. Naruto sighed briefly. My mother was Uzumaki Kushina, the Kamikage of Hibungakure and my father was none other than Kazama Arashi, the Yodaime Hokage and the Yellow Flash. The man finished. Kairi, you and the demon wait outside, I will call you when I wish to see you again. Kairi cast a small glance at Naruto before standing and walking out with Yugito. So brat, with their Kekkei Genkai at my disposal, I can bring Kumo to a new reign of power. You must have known this, but I can tell you want something in return. So first tell me what the second reason is. The Raikage said. Naruto grinned. I am like Yugito, I am the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi no Kitsune. I will have all his powers at my disposal in 7 years. A greedy look flashed across the face of the Raikage. 2 Jinchuriki at my disposal and the 9 tails is one of them. I can tell you won't be willing to become a mindless weapon like Yugito, so what do you want in return? 3 things, the first is to be allowed to stay with Kairi, I've grown quite fond of her. The second, When I join the ninja ranks, I want to be classified as one of the shadow nin. Naruto shocked the Raikage with his knowledge of secret ninja ranks. I want my position given publicly. I know that you are allowed to do that. How do you know so much about the shadow nin? I was informed that only clan heads and the cages knew of them. The Raikage asked. Well, technically I am a clan head, but I was raised by the Hyuga clan, so I peeked into the secret files when they weren't looking. Konoha security sucks. I mean the nin you sent to capture the Hyuga was spotted by a child, but not the guards. Naruto said. The Raikage tensed. How do you know about the kidnapping? I was there when it happened. I actually wounded the nin that kidnapped her. And that brings up my last request. I wish to be able to see her from time to time. Naruto stated. No, that is one request I cannot agree to. The Raikage said, sitting back down. Naruto hadn't expected him to refuse. Why not? Because of the goal we hope to accomplish. I cannot have you interfering, and I already told the people I have in charge of that project that no one will bother them. The Raikage crossed his arms. To hell with what you told them. I was trained by the Hyuga. I know most of their basics. I can train her. Naruto said, slamming his hands on the desk. The Raikage stood and growled at Naruto. Listen here, brat, I want you on my side, but I would rather have my own village than one boy. My nin brought back a grown Hyuga woman, she can train the young Hyuga girl. Now either you do things my way, or you can leave and don't expect to get far. My nin will kill you before you could go anywhere. Naruto held his glare for a moment before he sighed. Fine, I'll do things your way, but I want to know something. Why a young Hyuga? Breeding. We also want to develop a fighting style based off the Byakugan. Naruto fumed at the word breeding, but instead asked. Why the Byakugan and not the Sharingan? Because, we have ways to slow things down and ways to steal jutsu, but seeing through things with full 360 vision, we can excel more. The Raikage said. I know you would like more info on the project, but that info is confidential. Now I'll have Kairi allow you to stay with here. You can join the academy tomorrow. He called Kairi in and instructed her to take Naruto home. Monitor him for a while. I wouldn't doubt that he was sent here by that old geezer Sarutobi. Report back in a week. If he seems clean, I want you to monitor his training. The Raikage said to the Anbu that had dropped down in front of him. Oh, and have Raiden killed. Even if the mission was a success, had that boy stayed in Konoha, he could have told the Hokage about the kidnapping. Hi, the nin said before vanishing. The Raikage looked out the window. In the sky he could see a massive shift in power. He laughed. Naruto walked beside Kairi. When he left the tower, Kyuubi had informed him that the man had sent someone after him, to watch over him. So Kairi, I believe we'll get along just fine. Naruto said loudly. I hope so, Naruto-kun. Replied Kairi. Kairi led Naruto to the small 2-story apartment building she lived in. The first floor is vacant and one other person stays on the second floor with me and Yugito. If you fix it up, the first floor is yours, Kairi explained, leading Yugito upstairs. The bathroom is the third door on the left, upstairs my room is the first door, Yugito's is at the end of the hall. There's a month's supply of food in the basement, along with a bed and a small couch. Naruto watched as they finished their trek up the stairs. The next day found Naruto being led across the village by a red-haired girl. So are you a ninja? Naruto asked. Yep. Just graduated yesterday. My team is meeting tomorrow. The girl said. Her name was Tira. So any pointers? Yeah. When you go in, make sure everyone knows not to mess with you. You still have 3 years in there, so don't let them bully you the whole time. Tira responded. Most of the teachers are a bit violent, so make sure you follow the rules. Stick with this advice and you'll define. Naruto nodded as they entered the academy. Tira led him to a class secluded from most of the others. Naruto could tell from the noise that the class was a rough bunch, but his old class in Konoha was a rough bunch, so he could handle it. Class 3C, good luck. Tira knocked on the door and left. Naruto took a deep breath before opening the door and walking in. The second he opened the door, all the noise stopped as everyone stared at him. Naruto ignored them and slowly walked down towards the front of the room. As he got halfway there, he felt a large wave of killer intent directed at him. Naruto paused and heard a chuckle. He turned towards the group of boys glaring at him. Naruto snorted. That it? Naruto asked before he sent a large wave of killer intent at them. Kyuubi grinned inside the seal and sent some of his yukai into Naruto, making his eyes glow red, his fangs extend, and his whisker marks darken. The boys looked at Naruto for a moment before their glare turned into a look of acceptance. Naruto grinned and continued his trek towards the front of the room, where the teacher was waiting. You must be the Uzumaki brat Raikage-sama was telling me about. The teacher. My name is Koga, I'll be your teacher in practical strategies. You'll meet your combat trainer in the next class and your jutsu trainer after that. Tomorrow you will be tested to see where you place in rank with the other students. Take your seat over there. Koga pointed to a seat in the front row. And so began Naruto's life. He trained with Kyuubi in the mornings and at night. He trained in class along with studying strategies, and in the afternoon he was trained by an Anbu. He was given one day off a week to rest and he spent this day fixing up his living quarters. Well, he spent most of his day off doing that. 3 months after his arrival in Kumo, Naruto snuck into the Raikage's office. He stole 3 forbidden scrolls and copied them. On his way out after returning the scroll, he saw an interesting file sitting on the man's desk. The file was titled, Gauntlet. Naruto lifted the file, curiously, and began reading the first page. From Dr. Asen Revere to the Raikage, Sign Leets. Subject: Gauntlet Experiment. Byakugan Studies. Sign: As requested the last time we met, I've been keeping files on our new subject, 7 Hyuga Hinata and her Gordian Hyuga faith. Attached is the information you requested. Feel free to make any comments or suggestions. Asen. Naruto knew he didn't have much time, but he was intrigued, so he flipped to the next page and continued reading. Subject 7. Hyuga Hinata. Age: 10. Weight: 78 lbs. Height: 4 feet 8 inches. Blood type: AB+. Documentation: The subject seems to struggle with her Byakugan, still undeveloped. She seems to be shy and withdrawn, even around her guardian. She is exceptionally strong for someone of her age. Her skills with the Juken are average, no skills in either Genjutsu or Ninjutsu. Testing still need, but an estimate of 4 years before we can begin to procreate with our other subjects. Hyuga Faith. Guardian of Subject 7. Age: 29. WIEGHT. 119 lbs. Height: 5 feet 4 inches. Blood type: B. Documentation: We haven't run many tests on this subject. She will give us no other information on herself, only that she does not have the Byakugan. From the few tests we have run, we have discovered that she is barren. No other information is known. We'll keep you updated on all progress. Asen. Date the 17th of July 03. Naruto flipped to the back of the file and found where they were doing the experiments. He dropped the file back on the desk and snuck back out. He rushed towards the apartment building he lived in and charged into his room. A small knock on the door alerted him to Yugito's presence. Come in, Naruto called. Yugito walked in. Hey Naruto, you alright? Of course, Yugito always knew when something was bothering him. I'm fine. You need something? Naruto said, schooling his features. No, I was on my way out when I saw you storm in here. Yugito replied, stepping closer to the blonde Jinchuriki. Naruto, I'm always willing to listen if you need someone to talk to. Naruto looked at her. I know, but this is something I don't want to bother you with. It's my problem, so I'll find a way to deal with it. Yugito did something totally unexpected after he said that. In a quick moment she leaned forward and kissed Naruto. Just know that I'll always be there for you. Yugito turned to leave. Wait, how about we have dinner together tonight, all 3 of us like we used to? I'd like that, and I'm sure Kairi would too. Yugito walked out. The next day was Naruto's day off. Alright Kyuubi, I know you've seen the memory already, so you know what I'm gonna do. I will need your help if I want to make it out alive. Wait a second, brat. If you rescue them, then what? What are you going to do? Run from hunters your whole life? Kyuubi responded. Then what do you expect me to do? Let them sit around and breed Hinata. For the time being, yes. This statement caused Naruto to growl. Right now, they're being treated well enough, they won't die, but if you go charging in there with your current skills, you will. From what they said, they'll wait at least 4 years before they try anything with Hinata. So what should I do until then? Wait for them to finish. Kyuubi chuckled. No, you'll train more now than ever. I recognize this area. My cave is somewhere near these mountains. Get the Raikage to let you leave for 3 months and go to my cave. I'll direct you there, and in 3 years you'll strike, and then Kumo will surrender to a new power, to the new Kyuubi. At that moment Naruto stepped away from the road called Destiny. Together the past and future Kyuubis laughed. 3 years later, Naruto sat in his room, studying a small black scroll, when a small knock interrupted him from his reading. Naruto looked at his watch and gasped as he realized how late he was. Naruto-sama, you're late for your graduation. A small boy said as he entered the room. Naruto looked to the boy. Thank you, Heian. Return to your post, I'll call you after the ceremony. Naruto said, walking by the boy. And have Kazan, Hiyori, and Saya gather the necessary supplies for the Shattered Gauntlet operation. Naruto walked out of the building, walking past 5 red foxes. One of the foxes stood and followed him out. Congratulations to all of you who have made it this far. You are the youngest of all the genin out there, but you are far greater than the other villages' genin. Today marks a new day for all of you, and I welcome you into the world of ninja. The Raikage stood before the young genin standing with their parents. But out of all of you here, I can only choose one student that has excelled above the rest as one of the elite. All of the genin turned their stare at the blonde-haired boy in the front row. Naruto wore a black shirt, with a black vest over that with a fox on the back and black bracers. A dark silver plate covered the vital areas on the vest, and he wore a pair of black pants. He had his hair in thick spikes and his ears were slightly pointed with reddish blonde fuzz. His whisker marks were dark and his fangs were longer than normal. A blade wrapped in black cloth was attached to his back and 2 daggers were attached to his waist. To Naruto Uzumaki, I present him with the status of a Shadow Genin. He has access to all Chunin level secrets and he is allowed free roam of the elemental countries. The Raikage stated. Naruto walked to the stage and accepted the black and silver Hitai-8. The headband was all black with a silver lightning bolt. Thank you, Raikage-sama, I gladly accept this position, and with your gift to me, I have a gift to you. Naruto said, activating his Kekkei Genkei, the Tatsengen Elemental Eye, which was still in the second of 5 stages. Naruto held up his hand and outshot a silver lightning bolt. Hinata Hyuga sat in the dark cold cell they called a room, watching the skies. She saw the flash and smiled. It was time for freedom. Yugito and Kairi stood on the roof of the apartment building they lived in and grinned as they saw the lightning. It was time for revenge. They called themselves the Black Foxes, but they were really just Naruto's students. All of them were orphans that were attracted to the fox-like nature of Naruto Uzumaki. Heian, Kazan, Saya, and Hiyori looked up at the sky as the lightning flashed. It was time for their test to begin. All at once they began their jobs, as Naruto presented the Raikage with his gift. The red fox with Naruto leapt onto the Raikage as Naruto killed the guards around them. Naruto grabbed the Raikage, placed his newest weapon in the cruel man's back. People of Kumo, today is the day you decide, Naruto began. His voice boomed across the entire village. If you want to follow this bastard to hell, or join me in a new reign of power. The third Raikage has used all of you. He doesn't care whether you live or not, all he cares about is his life and his control in the world. So I stand before you and ask all those that don't want to follow this bastard to stand down and accept your new leader." As he said these words, Kairi and Yugito landed beside him. Kairi ni, guardian of the Jinchuriki host that contains the Nibi and friend to the new Kyuubi, has gratefully accepted my offer to become the Yodaime Raikage. So people of Kumo, do you accept her? Naruto called out. At first Naruto thought they would refuse the woman who openly accepted demons into her home, but then a sudden cheer surprised him as they gladly dethroned Sein Leets. Sein let out an angry roar as he broke free from Naruto. Suddenly Naruto was surrounded by a large group of ninja, the ones still loyal to their old master. "Naruto, go get Hinata, we'll take care of these bastards. Have your students get the villagers to the safe houses," Kairi instructed. Naruto raised his hand and this time he shot out a bright red ball of fire. After the ball exploded, Naruto vanished. His students knew what his signals meant. "Well then, Yugito, shall we return the favor?" Kairi said. Yugito smirked as the enemy Junin ninja charged. Naruto arrived outside the large facility built into the mountainside. "Knock, knock, I'm coming in," Naruto called before blowing a hole in the large door. The second Naruto stepped in, the Junin positioned at the door jumped in front of him. Naruto began his attack. He pulled out his weapon. It was based off something he had read in a manga before. It was called a chakra gun. It molded his chakra into a compacted ball that could be fired at high speeds, but unlike what he read in the manga, his bullets could be stopped. However, these Junin didn't know that. They only knew that when he shot one into them it ripped through their flesh and hurt like hell. Naruto only fired enough shots to make them stop, but then he knocked them out with the butt of his gun. It wouldn't do to kill Kairi's nin before she could get more. Naruto charged through the building, knocking out the doctors that tried to stand against him. As Naruto entered further into the facility, he began to blow the locks off the prison cells holding some of the other subjects, all of which hastily ran out. Naruto knew where every patient was in their condition. As he neared the ones that were too weak to walk, he bit his thumb and ran through hand seals. He placed his hand on the ground and out of a cloud of smoke came a large four-tailed fox. "Hello Naruto-sama, how may I be of service to you?" the fox asked in a low growl. "Kalen, I need you to carry these people out of here and to the village." Naruto pointed at the people and towards the exit. The fox nodded and Naruto helped the people onto the fox's back. When the fox disappeared down the hall, Naruto turned to finish his job when he heard a deep rumbling and felt the ground quake beneath him. Naruto turned and stood face to face with a large beast. The beast was like a mix between an alligator, a turtle, and a human. It had oily green skin and 2 rows of razor-sharp teeth. On its back was a large brownish-green shell. It had a human-like face. It had arms and legs like humans, but extending from its arms were 2 long blades. The creature roared and turned its eyes on Naruto, who gasped as he saw the swirling tomo of the Sharingan and the pulsing veins of the Byakugan. Naruto heard clapping behind him and spared a quick glance at the man standing in the doorway. "So I see you've noticed my latest experiment. Of course without an actual Sharingan it's still incomplete, but Ultrios should be able to handle you," the man said. Ultrios growled, letting out a large wave of its toxic breath, but because of his demonic blood, Naruto wasn't affected. Naruto fired 5 shots at the creature, but they bounced off its skin, not even leaving a scratch. The man laughed. "That fancy weapon of yours will feel like a bug bite to him." "Really? Then perhaps this bug needs to grow," Naruto said, his gun glowing a bright red. Naruto had activated his Dujutsu and was channeling flame chakra into his gun. The man had caught on and realized what Naruto was planning. "Ultrios, finish him off now," the man commanded. Ultrios roared and charged the blonde, who grinned and fired off a basketball-size flare bullet. With speeds Naruto hadn't expected, the creature dodged most of the blast, but it caught him under his arm. Ultrios roared and charged again. This time Naruto didn't have time to prepare a shot, so he stuck his gun inside his vest and grabbed his sword handle. Naruto waited until the creature was in front of him before he unleashed his sword in a powerful slash. The Sharingan the creature had anticipated the slash and the Byakugan saw the chakra filling in. The creature dodged and sliced his sword into Naruto's side. Naruto let out a hiss as he kicked back at the creature. Ultrios caught his foot and threw him into a wall, before charging him and slamming into him, shell first. The creature stood and allowed Naruto to fall to the ground. Although it's a pale imitation of the real things, he can still anticipate your moves. The man called as Naruto pulled himself off the ground. Naruto ignored the man, he knew that much. Naruto stabbed his blade into the ground and grabbed his two daggers, then he charged. Naruto swung his dagger at the creature's face and was happy to see it lean back to dodge the attack. Naruto charged his other dagger with lightning chakra, then sent it into the creature's stomach. Ultrios roared as the dagger pierced his flesh and the lightning coursed through his body. Naruto jumped back as the creature attempted to slice his head off. He had pierced flesh, but it wasn't a deep wound. His daggers wouldn't help him in this fight, plus he was running low on chakra trying to fuel his Tatsengen. He dodged another blow by flipping over the creature's head and sliced the back of its neck. The creature roared in pain as Naruto landed. On the creature's neck was a strange crystal. The crystal was blue in color with a red dot in the center that pulsed. The creature turned towards Naruto, who had formulated a plan. He pulled out a bunch of shuriken and tossed them at the creature. As he thought, they bounced off its skin and stuck into the floor and walls. Naruto pulled out his daggers and threw them at the creature, wrapping the chains around the blades on its arms, immobilizing it. Naruto pulled out his gun and charged it with another large shot, this time lightning chakra. He fired and missed. The shot flew past Ultrios and hit his sword. "Losing your touch, boy, you missed by a long shot," the man called. Naruto grinned as the creature roared in pain. Wasn't aiming at him. The shot had reflected off the sword and shuriken, then finally hit the crystal on the creature's neck. The crystal shattered and the creature fell to the ground, silent. "Now, it's your turn," Naruto said, turning to the man. "So you got a name?" Before the man could answer, the creature stood and stabbed one of his blades into Naruto's stomach. Naruto groaned and snapped the blade, then turned and looked the man in the eyes, his Tatsengen. As he looked into the man's eyes, he hesitated. The creature's eyes held sadness and remorse, but he still swung his other blade. "Hell, P.M.E. Key, LLM.E. The creature moaned. At that moment Naruto understood. This was just another experiment, another patient they had seriously fucked over. The crystal was controlling him and keeping his power in check, but now with the crystal destroyed, Ultrio's mind was his own, but not his power. Naruto pulled on the chain that was attached to the daggers, restricting Ultrio's arms once more. Then he took the blade he had ripped from his stomach and pulled out his gun. Naruto activated his other Kekkei Genkai, Kairoden Chakra Steel, and merged the blade with his gun, making a blade bullet. Naruto aimed and closed his eyes, then fired. The bullet flew true and straight, ended Ultrio's life. Naruto pulled his chains from around the creature's body, then reattached his daggers to his waist. He looked back, but the man was gone. Naruto growled angrily as he went to grab his sword. The facility shook as an explosion sounded. He needed to hurry. Yugito and Kairi stood on top of the Raikage Tower, looking towards the facility when 4 people landed next to them. Lady Kairi, Lady Yugito, the villagers arrived safely to the shelters, but the new genin would not go. They said that they wished to fight by their new cage's side. Hyan stated, causing Kairi to look down at the group of genin standing below. Also, we are ready to begin Phase 2 in purging Kumo. The villages west and east of Carrion City have readied their nin. We can take down Sign's stronghold when you are ready. Kairi looked towards the facility once more, then said, "We'll mobilize when Naruto returns. Until then, have everyone remain on standby." Hyan nodded, then vanished along with the others. Naruto dashed into the room where Hinata was being held. A pair of arms wrapped around him in a loving embrace. Naruto returned the hug, glancing around the room. Naruto, oh, I've missed you so much these last few months. Hinata called, tears streaming down her face. I've missed you too, Hinata-chan. Right now though we need to find Faith. Naruto said. She's gone. They told me that she could handle the things they did to her. The last time I saw her was almost a year ago. Hinata choked out in between her tears. Naruto let out another growl as he led Hinata out of the room and out of the facility, but not before leaving 100 explosive tags all around the facility. Naruto landed on the Raikage Tower with Hinata in his arms. Yugito and Kairi greeted the two just as Hien landed beside the again. Naruto-sama, you have returned with Lady Hinata. I trust you had no problems in there. Hien asked. Naruto looked down at his stomach, the wound had long since healed. Well, nothing I couldn't handle. Just a few nin and a lost soul. That's good. Naruto-sama, Sign's forces has begun their move away from Carrion City, also we found this. Hien said holding out a letter. 2. Naruto Uzumaki. This isn't over yet, you may have forced me to flee from my territory, but I will be back and when we meet again, I will kill you. You have foiled my plans, but I still have the resources and people to continue them elsewhere. I still have the thing you want most. Attached to the bottom of the letter was a lock of hair. Naruto knew what it meant. Sign knew that Naruto was planning something and had prepared a backup plan. He had faith. Naruto let out a loud roar that shook the pillars holding up the village of Kumo. Hinata read the letter and let out a small gasp. Kairi, call back our troops, Sign is gone, we'll get him another day. Naruto said before he realized who he was talking to. Sorry Raikage-sama, I didn't mean to order you around. Naruto corrected himself, it wouldn't do to have the villagers see Kairi taking orders from a child. That night Naruto sat on top of his apartment building, the red fox laying next to him. Kane, I need you to go back to the demon realm and try to locate Lyra once more. Naruto said to the fox, who nodded and vanished in a flash of light. Naruto looked up to the sky and asked, what should I do now? When he said these words, he suddenly remembered the last words Kyuubi had spoken to him. Flashback. Naruto was hurt and surrounded by enemy nin. He had just finished rescuing a village from rogue nin by killing their leader, who had injured him. Now the leader's lackeys wanted revenge, so they had surrounded the injured boy. Brat, what are you doing? These guys should be no trouble for a fox like you. Kyuubi called from the seal. I wasn't expecting them to attack me like this, I thought I could take them. Naruto replied. Kyuubi had a strange feeling in his body, he knew his time was running out. For some reason, possibly because Naruto had absorbed almost half of his powers by choice, the seal was merging the two of them together faster than it was supposed to. He had at least another year as long as he didn't give up more of his power, but Naruto wouldn't last a year if he didn't, so without caring Kyuubi sent his Yukai coursing through Naruto's chakra coils. The blonde attacked and in a flash he had killed off all his opponents. Naruto dropped to the ground as he felt the Yukai slipping back into the seal. Naruto, Kyuubi called, for the first time ever he called Naruto by his name. This is the end for me. I won't be able to help you anymore, so let me remind you. You are in control of your own fate, don't let anyone try to control you. You're the new Kyuubi, so go out there and let everyone know that. What are you getting so deep about? Naruto said, not understanding. Kyuubi interrupted before Naruto could call out his name. Call me Kurama, that's my real name. Kyuubi is just a title. Kurama. What's going on? The seal is about to fully merge us, it's time for me to go. Kurama stated. Go. So what am I supposed to do without you guiding me? I still haven't finished my training. Naruto called. Kurama growled at the blonde. Stop whining, brat. You're a fox now, act like it and remember Naruto, I exist inside of you. Those were the last words Naruto heard from Kyuubi, because as soon as he said it the seal broke and Naruto fell to the ground as all of Kurama's essence flowed into him. Naruto's chakra stream split in two, forming two separate sets of chakra coils, one pure, the other demonic. Naruto passed out. By the time Naruto awoke, he was in a bed in the village he had saved. He called to Kurama, but there was no answer, so Naruto went into his mindscape. The cage was gone, there was no evidence that it had ever been there, just endless halls. Naruto cried, like he had for his parents. Kurama had been the source of his troubles, but he was also like a father to Naruto these past few years. Flashback end. Even now Naruto still missed the fox who had taught him so much, but he knew that things happened for a reason. That's right, Naruto called, jumping to his feet. I'm a fox. Naruto jumped off the building and vanished into the night. The next day found Naruto sitting with Hinata and Yugito in Kairi's office. Naruto, because the last Raikage gave you the title of being a Shadow Genin, that means that it has to remain as such until you mess up. So Hinata, Yugito, if you would accept these, I can put you three into the first ever Shadow Squad, and since you're allowed Chunin secrets, you can go on missions without a Junin. Kairi passed the two girls headbands like Naruto's. You know, I think you planned this, Naruto. Well, I've always wanted to be a Shadow Nin, so I used the last Raikage's greed to help me. He had me training with an Anbu, plus I was training with Kurama, and coming after Hinata was the reason I joined Kumo. Hinata looked at Naruto. You really came all this way for me? Of course, don't you remember my promise? Naruto said. Yes, you told me that you would always protect me. I thought you were joking, we were so young. I never go back on my word, I only wish I could have protected you inside the village, but if I did, I never would have met Kairi and Yugito-chan. Naruto said, making the blonde girl blush. At that moment, Hinata did something unexpected. She pulled Naruto into a kiss, making him blush while Yugito fumed. Before Yugito could say anything, Kairi broke them apart. Back to the house, all three of you. Naruto caught sight of Yugito and was gone in a flash, the blonde Jinchuriki hot on his trail. Hinata arrived to see Yugito dragging Naruto into his room. You four, out, Yugito yelled to the children awaiting Naruto. But, Hien began. Out, Yugito said menacingly. Hien and the others spare a glance at Naruto, then left quickly. Yugito threw Naruto onto the floor and pinned him down. What the hell was that? She growled. Naruto looked towards Hinata and he knew she would want an answer also. Well, you see, Naruto mumbled. Fine, since you won't talk then Hinata, you tell me what the hell is going on. Well, the truth is I've been in love with Naruto since the first time I met him. Really? Well, so have I. Yugito said, before turning to Naruto. So then it's up to you, Naruto, choose who you want. Me. Yugito kissed Naruto. Hinata growled and pushed the blonde out of the way. Or me. She kissed Naruto again. Naruto was running things through his mind. If I choose Yugito, I'll break Hinata's heart, but if I choose Hinata, Yugito will break me. Naruto ran this through his head over and over before he blurted out. I choose both, I can't pick one, I'm in love with both of you. Naruto said. Oh, so you choose both of us, right? Well, who says we want to share you? Maybe I want to be selfish. Yugito said. Well then, Yugito-chan, perhaps it would be better for him if neither of us has him. Hinata stated before both of them leaned in and kissed Naruto's cheeks. Well, for the time being I guess I can share. Yugito finished walking out with Hinata. Hien walked in and found his boss lying on the floor, a stream of blood leaking from his nose. Hien groaned and went about waking Naruto. The next day found Naruto sitting in the Raikage's office awaiting his mission. Naruto, I know you just joined back up with Hinata, but this is a mission I only trust you with. Kairi stated, looking over the form. It's a long-term S rank, if you accept someone will be here to guide you tomorrow morning. How long? Naruto questioned. I'm not sure, it all depends on the client. Naruto sighed, he would have to spend the night with the girls. I accept. I'll be ready by 10. Thank you. Naruto and the girls sat on top of the apartment building, enjoying each other's company. Why'd you accept? Hinata asked, looking at Naruto. Naruto looked to the sky. Because of my dream. Yugito and Hinata looked at him curiously. My dream is and always has been to be a kage, to follow in the footsteps of my mother and father. In order to do that, I must be willing to help all of my people, no matter what. Yes, but in order to be a good husband you must put your wives before anything else. Yugito said with a blush. Naruto grinned and kissed her, then Hinata. I'll be sure to remember that after our wedding. Naruto's statement made the two of them blush. Naruto jumped to his feet and pulled the girls up. So until tomorrow I'm all yours. Naruto grinned, kissing them once more. Naruto sat on the roof of the apartment building, his students sitting in front of him. I probably won't be here when you graduate from the academy, so I wanted to give you guys your graduation gifts early. Naruto looked at Hien and removed his sword. For you, Hien, may it help you as it's helped me. Your fox fang, are you sure? Hien asked. I'll treasure it as if my own life was put into it. He said after Naruto nodded. Naruto removed his daggers and handed them to Kazan. May these fox tails help you carve your path in life. Thank you, Naruto-sama, Kazan said, attaching the daggers to his waist. Naruto looked at Saya and handed her his bracers. There's a hidden blade in each. These were once my fox claws, may they guide you towards your goal. Thank you, Naruto-sama, Saya stated, strapping the bracers to her arms. Naruto looked towards his last student, Hiyori. Your weapon is one that I made last night. I haven't used it, but I put my heart into making it. Naruto handed her a small gun, no bigger than his hand. It's called the Bloody Fox. May it pierce the hearts of your enemies. Hiyori accepted it. Then, no longer able to control herself, she tackled Naruto in a hug. Thank you, Naruto-sama, she called. Hiyori, control yourself, Saya called. Naruto laughed. It's all right. I want you guys to continue training, but have fun. I forget you're all still only 10. Hien smiled as they all nodded. Well, I have to go now, so I'll see you when I get back. Naruto turned to leave. Oh, two things. One, those weapons have 3 special abilities. Figure them out before I return and make sure nothing happens to any of you or Yugito and Hinata. Hi. The 4 called as Naruto vanished in a flash. Naruto stood in the Raikage's office, looking at his escort, a woman. The woman had long red hair and green eyes. She wore a black shirt with black pants and had on a pair of strange shoes. On her waist was 2 long swords and her kunai pouch was on her left thigh. Strange symbols lined her left arm. Hi, you must be Naruto, I'm Anya. Naruto noted the long fangs as she spoke. Nice to meet you, Miss Anya. Naruto responded, holding out his hand. Anya shook his hand and smiled, her fangs normal-sized. What are you? Naruto asked. Anya cast a puzzled glance at Kairi. Doesn't he know? Kairi looked sheepish. I forgot to tell him. I was thinking about something else when I gave him the mission. Don't you think giving him mission details is more important than whatever you were thinking? Anya growled. Kairi glared. No, I don't. If I did, I wouldn't have been thinking about it at the time. What could be that important? Anya questioned. Our father. Kairi said quietly. Naruto looked between the two of them, then shouted. What the hell is going on? The 2 women looked at the blonde fox. Sorry, Naruto, I forgot to tell you what the mission was about. The mission is one only you can take, because of who you are. The client is a demon, you're to guard and train her along with 3 other people. Anya here is the client's mother and also my half-sister. Oh, and there's no men in this village, just you and the other 3 boys training the client. Anya stated. What? Now that's information I could have used ahead of time. Naruto exclaimed. Anya cast another puzzled glance at Kairi, who laughed and said. He's dating 2 girls that are overjealous, he doesn't want to die early. Oh. Anya looked at Naruto once more. Don't worry, most of the girls will understand. Anyway, it's time to go, actually we're a little late. Anya placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder and the 2 vanished in a red light. The 2 demons landed in a small grove half a mile outside a village. That's it right there, Kagegakure, our little village hidden in the shadows. Anya stated, walking ahead. The others should be in the village already. I think you were the hardest to locate. Hey, you never told me exactly why I'm one of the ones you need to train this girl. Naruto said. Because of who you are. Anya stated. Naruto growled. What do you mean by that? You are Kurama's replacement and you also contain the core of the Demon King, Hakai. Anya stated as it was the most obvious thing. Naruto stopped in his tracks. I what? Anya looked at Naruto strangely. You mean, he never told you? Told me what exactly? What are you talking about? Naruto growled once more. Anya shook her head. If he didn't tell you, then it's not my place to do so. You'll have to wait until we get to the village. Anya stated, walking towards Kagegakure. Naruto followed, pissed because he wasn't getting straight answers. The two were led into a small building, where a girl slightly older than him sat talking to three equally young boys. When Naruto walked in, they stood and greeted him. The first boy had long purple hair and slitted purple eyes. He wore a purple shirt with black pants and a long purple trench coat. In his left hand was a purple sword with the word Pierce carved into the scabbard. His skin pale and smooth. The boy held out his hand. Name's Rail Hachibi, Hachibi's youngest son. The next boy was taller than Naruto. He had pale green hair, with black eyes. His skin was rough and had a shell-like texture to it. He wore all black and carried no visible weapons. On his right temple was a 4-point star. Hello, I'm Sable Havoc, container of the Sanbi. The boy stated, shaking Naruto's hand. You're part of the Havoc clan, the clan that specializes in explosion. Naruto asked. You know of my clan? I was informed that only Kages knew of us. Sable stated. Naruto laughed. I know a lot of Kage-level secrets. Naruto turned to one of the other boys. This one had long blonde hair, with green eyes. Tied into his hair was 2 black feathers. He wore a green sleeveless shirt with thin black gauntlets, and black pants. On his right shoulder was a circle with 3 feathers extending from it. A black hatchet was strapped to his waist. I'm Kaiser Shichibi, Shichibi's only son. Naruto looked to the last boy. This one had spiked brown hair and red eyes with a gold ring circling his iris. He wore a brown shirt and red pants, with 2 swords strapped to his back. On each cheek was 2 dark whisker marks. You? Naruto growled. Yes, me. Got a problem? The boy asked. Anya looked between the two of them, feeling the tension. You know Torin, Naruto. Naruto growled, and without answering, he reached into his vest. His gun was out in a flash, as was one of Torin's blades. Naruto's gun was aimed at Torin's eye. Torin's blade was digging into Naruto's throat. Using that again. Where's your fang? Torin growled. Naruto said nothing, half wishing he did still have his fang. I won't be caught off guard like I was last time. I know what that thing can do. Torin said. Really? Then you know that I can put 3 bullets in you before you can move. Naruto replied. The girl in the room grabbed the 2 weapons and they began dissolving into a black dust. I don't know what is going on between you two, but killing each other isn't the best way to go about solving it. The girl said. Torin snorted. Yes, it is. He's right. This won't end until he's dead. Naruto stated, lowering his hand. Don't think this is over, Zasper. Naruto glared at Torin, who lowered his damaged weapon. Naruto looked at the girl. She had pale alabaster skin, with full lips colored the deepest red possible. Her eyes were like twin pools of blood with thin black lines trailing down her cheeks like ebony tears. Her long black hair had some black feathers weaved into it, almost like they were coming off her head. She wore a tight black shirt that had silver trimming in the shape of thorny vines and a silver skull brooch with sapphires embedded in the eyes, black boots with 3-inch metal spiked heels, a pair of long black fingerless gloves with silver bracelets that had sapphires in them, also feathers coming off the back of the bracelets up her arm. Her finger and toenails were painted dark red near black like her lips. A pair of tight black jean shorts that reached just below her knees covered her thighs with a jewel-encrusted chain belt with dark sapphires in it. Who are you? Naruto asked rudely. Masaki Asagita. The girl said. Are you anyone important to this village? Naruto questioned. Once again his tone was rude and annoyed. Masaki flipped her hair. I'm the one who hired you and also the princess of this village. Naruto nodded. Well then, to refrain from putting your village at war with me, I want to ask that you never destroy my Kurama again. Naruto growled, holding up the half-disintegrated gun. The girl took a step back at the feral look in Naruto's eyes, his red eye glowing. Before anyone could blink though, Naruto felt 4 blades touching his throat. Now, we can't have you killing our client, we have to guard her also. Rail stated. The 4 spun around when they heard someone chuckle behind them. You guys work fast, just make sure you're getting the right guy. Naruto said, standing in the doorway. What the hell? Kaiser called, turning back to the Naruto they had raised their blades to. This Naruto walked back to the original and placed a hand on his shoulder. The first Naruto melded into the original. Hito Bunshin, Soul Clone, a technique I developed off of the Shadow Clone. They each have their own personality. I can make up to 3, that was Zell. Naruto explained before walking over to Masaki. I apologize for his behavior. Masaki blushed when Naruto kissed her hand. It's alright, now that you're here, we can schedule out some things. Yes, but first, Naruto turned towards Anya. I want answers. What were you talking about when you said I contain the core of the Demon King? Rail laughed. You don't know, all of us in here have a descendant that fought against the once fearsome Demon King, everyone except Anya and Kaiser. That explains nothing. You're wrong, that explains everything. Sable shook his head. About 1,000 years ago, a powerful demon named Hakai waged war on the world. It was one demon, but everything thrown at him failed to even injure him. Then 5 warriors rose from the ashes of humanity, each with their own skill. The Uzumaki had his chakra steel which ripped through his flesh, the Zasper had flash web which restricted his movements, the Havoc had his chakra bombs which knocked him around, the Hachibi had her shadow blades which struck deep into his core, and the Asagita had his acid kai which melted his flesh. Even with all this strength on their side, they couldn't hope to defeat the Demon King, he was too strong, so they sealed his strength away, into their own body. Into the Asagita went his demonic energy, into the Hachibi went his demonic chakra, into the Havoc went his soul, into the Zasper went his physical being, and into the Uzumaki went his core, his heart. For generations, the pieces of the Demon King have remained dormant, but now all at once they are awakening and calling to each other. There are people out in the world that want to reawaken the madness that was Hakai. That is one of the reasons we were asked to join together here. Also, to train her. She has lived a sheltered life, it makes me wonder if she really is a descendant of Azrael, the angel of death. Masaki glared at the container of Sanbi, who ignored her. Well, things just got interesting, so any info on the guys who want to revive the Demon King? Naruto asked, suddenly interested. And why's Shichibi's son here? Anya shook her head. No, they've been keeping quiet, we only found out they were out there because they tried to kidnap Masaki. Shichibi is the one of the descendants of Azrael, and though Kaiser doesn't contain any of Hakai's pieces, he knows more on Raven demons than anyone else in the village. Naruto nodded, then looked down at his broken gun. Well, if I'm going to be protecting anyone, I'm gonna need this fixed. Naruto stated. So what's the plan? I'll be putting you 4 in teams to guard and train Masaki. One team will guard and train, the other will be gathering info on the ones trying to revive Hakai. Anya said. Since Torin and Naruto will probably try to kill each other, I'll put you 2 in different groups. The groups are this: Naruto and Rail, Torin and Sable. Kaiser will be training her most of the time, but all of you will at some point. First on guard is Torin and Sable. Naruto, Rail, you 2 meet me here tomorrow, I'll have info on where you can begin your search then. Until then, look around the village, I'm sure there's some things you could do to enjoy yourselves. Torin and Sable vanished, heading towards the heart of this all-girl village. Kaiser left at a slower pace to gather the necessary items to train Masaki. Rail stood in his spot, and when Naruto went to leave, he placed a hand on his shoulder. Yo Kyuubi, up for a spar? Rail asked. Give me 3 minutes to fix my weapon, I'll meet you in the grove outside the village. Naruto replied as he pulled out a kunai and left. Naruto sat in the grove meditating, when Rail arrived. Naruto opened his eyes and stood. Alright, ready when you are. Rail said. Without warning, Naruto shot at Rail, moving at high speeds. Rail leaned back slightly, dodging the strike, then raised his sheathed sword to block Naruto's gun. Naruto jumped back to dodge the strike sent at his head, then kicked out at the purple-haired demon. Rail dodged to the side and swept at Naruto's other leg. Naruto dropped his leg down, forcing Rail to pull back out of his sweep. Rail grabbed a knife from his leg and threw it. Naruto had already been in the motion of throwing a kunai, the two projectile weapons collided. Naruto nodded to Rail and the two boys stood straight. Alright, warm up over, let's begin. Rail stated. Naruto aimed his gun and fired. The shot was off, it flew past the snake demon's head and into the tree behind him. Rail glanced back and saw the small hole going straight through the trunk of the tree. Rail looked back at Naruto, who grinned. So that's what that thing does. Thanks for the warning, Rail stated. Naruto shook his head. Warning? No, I missed. Rail grinned, then pulled his sword free from its scabbard. This is my fang, Naraji. The blade was a deep purple and had the name Naraji carved into it. Naruto nodded and the two charged each other. The two weapons clashed, sending off a flash of sparks. Naruto pulled back and fired. Rail hesitantly threw up his Naraji as a shield and blocked the bullet. Rail grinned as the two began the next attacks. They fought for 20 minutes non-stop and they both were tired. One last move, I'm guessing that's all you have left, right? Naruto asked. Rail nodded. The two boys eyed each other, trying to find an opening to help them win. A leaf fell from one of the still standing trees. When it landed, they charged. Naruto got in range, and fired a bullet at Rail. Rail swung his blade at the blonde fox. Naruto's bullet sliced into Rail's arm. Rail's Naraji swept across Naruto's chest, slicing through his clothes and into his flesh. Both boys fell to the ground, in pain and exhausted. The sound of footsteps alerted them to the presence of others in the now destroyed grove. They turned their heads painfully towards the noise and saw 5 people walking towards them, including Masaki and Anya. Hey, what are you guys doing here? Naruto stated, sitting up. Watching a good spar, one of the other girls said with a giggle. Rail sat up and looked at them. So, who's the winner? The girls looked at Naruto, then Rail. Tai, Kyuubi-kun, Rail-kun. Each of them said a different answer, and then they glared at each other. Anya sighed and slapped her forehead. Ladies, could you please get to work? The girls blushed, then walked over and began healing the two boys. Naruto stood and stretched his arms. We would have been healed in a few hours, they didn't need to do that. Naruto stated. They wanted to. Anya shrugged. Naruto bent over and grabbed his gun before turning and looking at Masaki, who was eyeing his gun. In a sudden move, he tossed his gun to the black-haired girl. She barely caught it as she looked at Naruto curiously. Give it a try, just push chakra into it and pull the trigger. Naruto explained. Masaki did as she was told, aimed at a tree and fired. Her shot was way off, hitting the ground 3 feet from the target. Naruto grinned and walked over to her. Look, when you aim, make sure this is pointed directly at your target. Naruto stepped behind Masaki and aimed her arms towards the tree. If your aim is off, you can miss easily, so it's best to aim at your target's widest area, that way if you miss where you're aiming, you can still hit something. Naruto stated, then pulled the trigger for Masaki. The mixture of their chakras came out as a dark green. The bullet flew into the tree and blasted a large hole in it. So what do you think? Like it? Naruto asked. Masaki nodded. It's interesting. I'll have one made for you when it's time for me to train you. Naruto stated, releasing Masaki from his arms. Well, I think I'll go explore the town now, Rail stated. You ladies want to join me? The girls looked at Anya, who nodded and said, go ahead, with me and Naruto here, nothing is going to happen to Masaki. The girls ran off with Rail giggling. So Naruto, what do you think of Rail? Anya asked. Naruto thought for a moment. He seems like a nice guy, kinda distracted. Good. Anya surprised Naruto. I thought it was just me, I trust you more than I trust the others, so I purposely placed you with him. I want you to keep an eye on him, watch and make sure nothing happens. Naruto nodded. Alright, I'll let the others do it. As Naruto said that, 3 figures emerged from his body. One was a red-haired kid, about 10 years old. He had green eyes and no whisker marks. He looked like a small child, except for the fox ears and tail. He wore a red shirt with a smiley face on the back and black shorts. A gun almost too large for him was strapped to his waist. The next was a tall boy, with a scowl on his face. His hair was in short spikes and blonde. He had 3 whisker marks on each cheek and slightly pointed ears. He wore a deep blue vest with nothing under it, showing off his chest. He wore fingerless gloves of the same color and a gold chain with a fox emblem hung around his neck. He wore a pair of black pants and black boots. His eyes were silver and a long black object was strapped to his back. The last one surprised Masaki and Anya, simply because of the fact that it was a girl. She had long blue hair, with blue eyes and no whisker marks. She wore a blue tank top, which showed off her curves and slender arms. She had on a pair of tight black pants with a silver chain belt wrapped loosely around her waist. Her nails were painted a dark blue and she had deep red lips. On her neck was a crescent tattoo, with a vine wrapping around it. Attached to the chain on her waist was a black and silver gun. These are my others. Vice is the small boy, you've met Zell, this is him in his original form, and this girl here is none other than Aoi. She was developed from a joke, I made a jutsu to deal with perverts and she is the result of giving that joke a soul. Naruto stated. What's that on his back? Masaki asked. Zell turned his scowl towards her and pulled the object off. It's called a sniper rifle, it's a gun used for long-distance firing. I realized that some of my weapons, when attached to a Hito Bunshin, can be stored inside my body with the clone. Naruto explained. You call them soul clones, how did you get the extra souls and how do you attach them to a clone? Anya asked. The souls inside of them were from foxes that died protecting me, even Zell. He has always had attitude, but he has a good heart. I connected the souls to clones with the help of my friend, the container of Nibi. Naruto explained. Zell was ignoring them, he had the rifle out aiming it at the village, watching something through the scope. Aoi simply stood watching, while Vice ran around chasing a butterfly. Naruto noticed the small trickle of blood seeping out of Zell's nose and slapped his forehead. Zell, what could you be looking at in this all-girl village? Naruto stated. Not only is he a jerk, he's also a mega perv. So are you. Zell stated, not taking his eyes off the village. No, I'm not. Naruto yelled back. Zell chuckled, while Aoi began whistling. You forget, we have access to your mind, don't think we don't see how you look at Yugito and Hinata. That's different, those are my girls. Naruto complained. What about Masaki and Anya, are they your girls also? Zell stated, shifting the rifle to another area. I saw what you were thinking when you saw them, especially Masaki. I believe you said that she looked like a goddess in those tight black. A bullet flew past his head. Zell looked back at Naruto, who was standing with his gun aimed at the short-haired blonde, his face red along with Masaki's. What's wrong? Embarrassed? At least I don't try to hide it. Zell stated. What are you talking about? I'm not a perv. So what if I think Masaki's cute? That doesn't make me a perv. Naruto stated. Zell looked at the village through his scope. No, but it makes me one. She is cute. The statement was a simple one, but another small trickle of blood from his nose made it far more perverted. Masaki sent her fist crashing into both of the blondes' heads, before yelling out. You perverts. Naruto and Zell both had large knots on their heads as they entered the village moments later, trailing after the others. Naruto looked to his clone. This is your entire fault. Whatever. I didn't do. Zell's sentence trailed off as he spotted something in one of the store windows. Hey, Naruto, how much money did you bring with you? About 30,000 Ryu. Why? Naruto asked, looking to the store Zell was occupied with. It was a small bookstore, with a full set of silver and orange books in the window. The two book series were Ika Ika Paradise and Ika Ika Goddess, the sacred books of, well, porn. No, Naruto stated before Zell could ask for them. Oh come on Naruto-sama, this will help you with your problem too, it will take you mind off of being a perv if you read these. Zell stated. If it will get you to leave me alone, I'll buy them. Naruto stated with a sigh. He can be really nice when it comes to being a perv. Naruto entered and bought the two sets, but on the way out he saw an interesting contest flyer. Attention all readers of the Ika Ika series, the creator has decided to let you design his next series. All those interested, fill out this flyer with your ideas and send them in. Contest ends when the next series is made. Prize is 5 million Ryu. Though Naruto wouldn't admit it, he was a little perverted, and with him and Zell working together they were bound to win. That much money and they would be set for at least 3 years. Naruto hesitantly grabbed the flyer and walked out. Zell, look at this. Naruto passed the flyer to his clone. Zell read over the flyer and vanished back into Naruto, taking Ika Ika Paradise with him. Naruto chuckled, as he heard Zell running through random ideas for the contest. Well, time to go check out the town. Naruto stated, looking at his watch. Hey, I know everyone is going to be mad about this next part, but everything happens for a reason. So to those of you that want to complain, bite me, I'm not changing it. Now on to the next part. Timeskip 3 years. Naruto walked through the sleeping town of Kagegakure. A pale girl with black hair leaned on his shoulder, as he supported her back to her house. The two had just finished their training and both were covered in cuts and bruises, with dirt covering their clothes. Naruto entered the house, leading the girl to her bedroom when the girl shook her head. I want to relax in the onsen for a while, my body aches. The girl said. You sure? A little rest should help you out. Naruto stated. The girl shook her head. I need to soak my muscles first. Alright. Naruto led the girl to the large room that contained her private onsen. The girl went to remove her clothes, but her arms wouldn't move. The girl chuckled. I need help with my clothes. She said to Naruto. I'll go get one of you guards. Naruto said, beginning to move away. No need, you can do it. Naruto shook his head. I'm a guy, remember. I don't mind, I just need help right now. Alright Masaki, as long as you don't try to kill me when you come to your senses. Naruto slowly began to help the princess out of her clothes. He blushed as he looked upon the slim figure of Masaki. Her body was thin, but not completely. She had a small amount of fat on her stomach. Her were medium, but that wasn't what Naruto was staring at. Crossing from her just above her right all the way down to her waist was a long scar. Without thinking, Naruto reached out and gently traced the scar with his finger. How did this happen? When I was 5, I was attacked by a horde of shadow demons. My father came to save me, but it was too many of them. They killed him and attacked me. I blacked out, and when I came to, I was lying on the ground, surrounded by bodies of dead shadow demons, the scar on my chest already there. Masaki said in a soft voice. I was covered in blood, but most of it was from the demons. Anya found me wandering a while later. She took me in and raised me as her child, as the princess of this village. Naruto lifted the demon princess off her feet bridal style and carried her towards the onsen. Naruto noted that her skin was soft and smooth as her walked into the water. Naruto-kun, you'll get your clothes wet. Masaki stated. Naruto didn't care. It doesn't matter. What are you doing? Masaki stated as Naruto lowered her into the water and began rubbing the water on her body. I don't know, but for some strange reason I feel very attracted to you right now. Naruto stated before leaning in and pressing his lips against Masaki's. The kiss was gentle, warm, and exactly what Masaki had been waiting for. Naruto-kun, should you be doing this? Masaki asked as Naruto pulled back from their kiss. Quote, Naruto and Masaki broke apart as Kaiser burst through the door panting. A large wave of killer intent hit him as he looked at the two demons radiating dark energy. Kaiser blushed. Oh, sorry. You have 3 seconds to tell me why you interrupted us. Naruto said darkly. I need your help, it's terrible. Anya's dead. Despite being Naruto leapt out of the water. This better not be a joke. Naruto growled, pulling his clothes on. It's not. I saw it myself, she was killed by rail.